We've all been there, right? You say one thing, somebody hears something completely different. It happens, but imagine that same misunderstanding happening in a courtroom where a single word could literally change someone's life. Today, we're diving into a legal system that built an incredibly detailed framework to tackle this exact problem, the fact that words have meanings that are both obvious and hidden.
So here's the big question, isn't it? When does a word stop being just a word and become a final verdict? At what point is a statement so powerful, so legally binding, that what you secretly meant to say just doesn't matter anymore? This is a huge problem, and it's one that Islamic jurisprudence has been wrestling with for centuries.
You know, any legal system that's going to work has to have a reliable way to handle fuzzy language. In Islamic legal theory, this is definitely not left up to chance. There's a whole system for classifying words to make sure that legal decisions are as fair and precise as they can possibly be. And it's a really fascinating way of looking at the power of language.
Okay, so here's how it all breaks down. Right from the start, all speech gets split into two main categories. You've got words that are considered clear, direct, and obvious. And then you have words that are more elusive, or their meaning is kind of hidden. These two paths are called Sareeh and Kinaayah.
So let's start with Sareeh. Honestly, the best way to think about Sareeh is like a giant blinking neon sign. It's a word or a phrase that is so unbelievably clear, so transparent that you just can't miss the meaning. There's zero room for interpretation, no clarification needed. It is what it is.
And then you've got the total opposite, Kinaayah. Is Sareeh is that obvious neon sign, Kinaayah is, well, it's more like a coded message. The real meaning is hidden, it's obscure, and to figure it out, you need a key. And that key is either the context it was said in or what the speaker actually intended.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. The huge difference between these two comes down to one single concept, niyat, or your intention. Does what you secretly meant to say actually matter in the eyes of the law? Well, it completely depends on whether the words you used were Sareeh or Kinaayah.
And this creates a super clear rule. When it comes to Sareeh, the legal effect is automatic. The law just takes your words at face value. What you meant to say, totally irrelevant. But with Kinaayah, it's like the law hits the pause button. It has to investigate your intent or the circumstances before any ruling can be made.
Let's make this real. Imagine a husband says the words, "You are divorced." Bam. Legally, it's done. Even if he turns around and says, "Oh, I was just kidding," it doesn't matter. Or if a master says to a slave, "You are free," that person is freed on the spot. These are Sareeh statements. The words themselves pull the legal trigger.
But now, let's flip it. What if that same husband says something like, "You are separated from me"? Does that mean divorce? Or does he just want to sleep in another room for a while? See, because it's ambiguous, it only counts as a legal divorce if it can be proven that he intended it to be a divorce. Without that intent, the words just hang in the air with no legal power.
Now, this isn't just some dusty old legal theory. It has massive, real-world impact. And to see just how big, we're going to look at a major debate between two great schools of Islamic law, the Hanafis and the Shafis, over something as basic as the act of purification.
At the center of it all is this one little phrase from the Quran. It's talking about tayammum, the dry ablution you do with dust or sand when there's no water. The verse says that God, quote, wants to purify you. The huge question becomes, how literally do we take that word, purify?
So you've got two major schools of thought looking at the exact same words. The Hanafi school says, look, the word purify is Sareeh. It's crystal clear, it's absolute. So tayammum gives you the same complete, unrestricted purity as using water. But the Shafi school sees it differently. They say it's conditional. It's a special kind of purity that's only granted out of necessity. And when that necessity is gone, so is the purity.
And this one difference in interpretation, it just snowballs into a ton of different rulings. Because the Hanafis see it as absolute purity, they say you can perform several obligatory prayers with just one tayammum. Makes sense, right? But for the Shafis, nope, the necessity ended after the first prayer, so you need a new one for the next. Hanafis say someone with tayammum can lead a prayer for people who used water. Shafis say, no way, water is the superior form. You see how it works? It's a whole cascade of legal differences, all from one word.
Okay, so we've talked about daily rituals, but let's raise the stakes. I mean, really raise the stakes. What happens when we're not talking about prayer, but about criminal law, when someone's life or freedom is hanging in the balance?
This brings us to an absolutely foundational legal principle.
Serious, prescribed punishments cannot, under any circumstances, be carried out based on Kinaayah, on ambiguous speech. When the consequences are that severe, the law demands a much higher standard of proof.
Let me put that another way. If someone is on trial for a crime that has a major penalty, any confession they make has to be Sareeh. Period. It must be direct, clear, and totally unambiguous. Even a tiny hint of another possible meaning is enough to throw it out. It's just not enough to convict.
And you see this play out in some fascinating ways. For instance, a confession made just with sign language, that's considered Kinaayah. It's just not seen as having the same absolute clarity as spoken words. Or what if someone is accused of something and they reply, "You have spoken the truth." Is that a confession? Or are they just agreeing with some other true thing the accuser said? That doubt, the doubt that's built right into Kinaayah, acts as a powerful shield to protect the accused.
All right, let's pull all this together and boil it down. What's the big takeaway here? Step 1. Sareeh is clear, obvious speech. Its legal effect is instant and your hidden intention is irrelevant. Step 2. Kinaayah is indirect, elusive speech, and its legal effect is totally dependent on proving what you intended. And step 3. This one simple distinction is powerful enough to define everything from daily worship to life or death sentences in court.
At the end of the day, this whole system isn't just about lawyers arguing over words. It's a foundational pillar of the legal system, one that's carefully designed to create certainty when possible, and to protect people from the dangers of ambiguity when it's not. It's a framework for getting closer to justice.
And that kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on. Every legal system on Earth has to deal with this problem, whether it's through written rules or just how judges decide things over time. So how does the law where you live decide what your words really mean?